Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're talking about print sizes, megapixels, and how big a print you can make from your Micro Four Thirds camera. So let's get into it. Okay, so the other day I was delivering a 5 by 5 foot print to a client, and it got me thinking about people's perceptions of megapixels and how big a print you can make and worrying about image quality and all that kind of stuff. And so I thought it'd be a fun topic to talk about how far you can push a Micro Four Thirds file and how big a print you can make from your camera. So I wanted to run a series of tests, and what I did was I went down to my studio and I took a series of pictures of exactly the same content with some different cameras, and I made some actual prints. And I think it's really important to talk about where the rubber actually meets the road, because 99.9% of our pictures only wind up online, and megapixels there rarely matter, if any. Talking about Instagram and Facebook and online galleries and things, pretty much any camera can handle that these days. But when it comes to making prints, it can make a difference. And so I wanted to just test, kind of how far we can push it and what the quality looks like. And so I'm going to have these pictures available for download so you can look at what I'm looking at and make your own test prints from my files if you don't have some of your own. But here's the thing. After shooting millions of frames with Micro Four Thirds cameras, hundreds of thousands of pictures a year, as a wedding and portrait photographer, I make a ton of prints for albums and walls and all kinds of stuff. And I can tell you this. Up to about 2 to 3 feet across, Micro Four Thirds images make just absolutely outstanding prints. Even without much care or thought in the process, you can make an absolutely stunning picture from any of your Micro Four Thirds files up to what the Europeans would call, I think it's A1 in Europe, which is close to 2 feet, 3 feet across. It just absolutely makes an outstanding print. And to prove that to you, I took out a series of cameras. I have an EM10 Mark III. I have an EM1X, which I'm also shooting not only in its native 20 megapixel resolution, but also in its handheld high-res mode and its tripod high-res mode. And then the other camera I had with me was a Phase 1 IQ160 medium format back, which is a 60 megapixel medium format camera that takes a very, very high resolution image, and I think will represent kind of the top in terms of megapixels that we can purchase at the moment. And with 100 megapixel cameras hitting the market soon, and I guess some of them are already out there in medium format land, I think that it represents kind of that high resolution standard. So here we are, right? So we're out there on the rooftop, and we're got the tripod out. We're making these test images, and then when we got back in the studio, and I used an EM10 Mark III, like I said, and an EM1X in the Phase 1. What I did was I sized all of those pictures to the same size as the Phase 1. So I res up the EM1X files and the EM10 Mark III files to be about 30 inches across. And then I printed out an 8 by 10 section of each of those images. And so if you look at the example here, here's the full frame of that picture. Let me just hit this. And this section right here is the part I printed. And it's an 8 by 10 inch cutout of the middle of the frame. And then I went to make test prints of each of those, and I put them on a tabletop and ran it by all of my friends. And I can tell you guys, without people knowing what they were looking at, and from a distance of 1 to 2, 3 feet away, meaning like you're standing looking at them on a tabletop, it is nearly impossible to see the differences between these files. And this is a 30-inch wide, so close to 3 feet across print. And this represents, if web is 99.9% of our pictures, this is 99.99% of our pictures, 99% wind up not being bigger than 3 feet across. So this is a wall-sized print. This is a very big print. And this is assuming you're printing on very high definition media. Like if you're going to print on canvas, that robs you of a lot of your resolution, for example. And a lot of people put big canvases on their walls, the ones that go 3 or 4 feet across. But if you're going to make an actual high definition photographic print, I think you can go up to 3 or 4 feet across with your Olympus files without ever noticing a difference. Now, once I told people that I was specifically testing resolution and I let them get this close to the print, then you can start to see some very minute differences in the pictures. And so I think that that's the thing you have to know here. If you are going to put a picture above a sofa, or you're going to look at it on a mantle, then having an ultra high res camera may not make any difference to your enjoyment of the print. If you are somebody who likes to sniff their prints, if you're going to hang it in a hallway and you're going to be looking at it from this far away, then maybe some of that detail is important to you. So it's important to know your use cases and to know your tolerances, and I think it's really important to go ahead and make some test prints so that you can see these differences for yourself. I also ran the same test in the studio. So here I took 2 pictures of my daughter, one with the Phase 1 and one with the EM1X, and here I could not use the high res mode because of studio lights, and handheld high res requires multiple frames, and it's kind of a purely sort of ambient light kind of mode. But here we took a regular EM1X file, 20 megapixels, and a Phase 1 IQ160. And then I resed up again the EM1X file to the 60 megapixels of the IQ160. Looked at the two 20 by 30 inch files, and then cropped out an 8 by 10 section of each, and look at them. So this represents a pretty drastic crop of the of the image overall, and certainly a very substantial enlargement and cropping of the EM1X file. And as I look at these two 8 by 10s, both of them look absolutely outstanding. And I think that's the thing I'm taking away from this, is that I love printing big. And I can tell you right now that if you want to make a 20 by 30 inch portrait and hang it on a wall, the EM1X would absolutely kill it. And of course the Phase 1 looks amazing, but just very, very nuanced differences between the two. You have to get in super close and be like, does this eyelash look better than that eyelash? And that is something that hardly anybody is going to do. Now, let's just take a step back. Most of the time you are not doing direct A to B comparisons. And so I want to say this. If you have an Olympus file and you want to go to 4 or 5 or 6 feet across, and you're not directly comparing it to an ultra high resolution medium format camera or whatnot, I don't think you would ever be disappointed in the results. If you are A-Bing 2 pictures and you're getting out to 4 and 5 feet across, you're going to start to see some differences for sure. Are your friends and family going to notice those differences? Only in direct comparison. So I don't think that's a very real world example, but if you're shopping for cameras and you're wondering what the differences are, I think it's really worth looking at some of these prints, and it's really important to get it on paper and look at it, because it's so much more subtle than you think it would be. Now, there are a couple of caveats I want to mention. If you are going to do significant cropping of like a wildlife image and you want to take 10% of the frame and then make that 2 or 3 feet across, then the more megapixels the merrier there. And if that's part of your process, then certainly you have to consider that. If you are shooting very large groups of people, like for example, like I like to shoot people in large environments. So if I have a couple out and I'm shooting a landscape size image of them, so like they're very small in the frame, if you don't have enough pixels making up one particular face, that can be a problem when you make a very, very large print, okay? Or let's say you're doing a picture of the 8th grade and it's 200 kids in a picture. If not enough pixels make up each of those faces and then you go to make a very large print, the loss of detail in a face is very noticeable to people. So there are certain scenarios where high megapixel cameras might be very useful. But there's also a couple of tools we have at our disposal that are certainly present for almost every camera and can make a huge difference. And the first one of those is stitching. So if you can take 2 or 3 frames and then combine them in the computer to make one 60 megapixel or 100 megapixel file, then you've just gained a ton of resolution that you might need for a 4 or 5 or 6 foot wide print. So if you're able to do that, that is certainly a very cost-effective and easy way to do it. The other thing you can do if you have an Olympus camera, and at least a lot of the models, is you can do high-res mode. Now, high-res mode has its own limitations. If things move during the exposure, that can cause weird artifacting and whatnot. So it depends on your particular application. But what really struck me from doing these tests is that these standard 20 megapixels that I'm getting out of an EM1X, or even these 16 megapixels that I'm getting out of an EM10 Mark III, look absolutely outstanding. And it's so much closer than you think it would be when you think about the words 100 megapixels, 60 megapixels, and 16 megapixels. So just remember, and this is the one thing I would love everybody to take away, is you must look at pictures on a page to make meaningful comparisons. If you're looking at pictures online and it's like on Instagram, it's impossible to tell how many megapixels were used to capture the image. If you are in Photoshop and you are looking at pictures at 200%, I just don't think that's a very accurate representation of just how close the pictures can be in print. Because it's just different when it gets onto a page and you're looking at it from a distance and it's actually there for you to physically look at than it is to be comparing just how fuzzy this detail is versus this detail at 200% in Photoshop. So here's my studio comparisons and here's my landscape comparisons. They're going to be on Dropbox. Please take a second to download them and look at that and decide for yourself where the rubber meets the road for you. As always, your mileage may vary. And it's really important, I would also say, to do whatever blows your hair back. If ultra high resolution is something that you're really keen on, then you have options, right? If you're a pro like I am and you get an assignment you need an ultra high resolution image for, then you're going to do whatever it takes to get the job done. But in my mind, when you're shopping for cameras and thinking about what it is your camera can do, it's way more important to think about, does my camera give me the ability to capture the moments that I want? Does it give me the ability to shoot in the environments that I want? Those are more important to me than how many megapixels it has. Because once the rubber meets the road, once you actually have a print in your hands, once you're looking at something that's hanging on your wall, you're going to be so impressed with what your cameras are capable of. So that's it for me today, guys. Please take a look at this stuff. Hit me up in the comments. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you all in the next one.